So yeah, this is for everyone who'd like the VHS and memories video. I'd like to do more of them down the road. Maybe I can actually start doing some breakdowns of VHSs and movies again. But yeah, the older stuff, it doesn't get as many views. And yeah, you know what? I wish it did, or I wish more people liked it. But the amount of time I was putting in to make those videos and only getting not even 100 views at the time is like, but hey, maybe here I can just quickly, or whatever, quickly, extensively go over RoboCop 2. RoboCop 2 came out in 1990, the pinnacle of a generation, more like the beginning of chaos. But yeah, the 90s. This movie, it came out in 1990. I can't believe it. I probably saw it. I was born in 86. I probably saw it then, but yeah, one of my favorite movies. My mom would take me to the rental store. I would rent RoboCop. She showed me RoboCop. I loved RoboCop, but then once I saw RoboCop 2, it blew me away. I don't always like sequels more or anything, but this sequel, I just watched them recently, both the movies, and RoboCop 1 is probably like a better regular movie at the end of the day or something to some people, but RoboCop 2? Oh my god, it has Kane. Kane is like a villain he's like cult leader of this nuke. It's like a new drug called nuke, and he's like a cult leader of the drug community, and RoboCop's hunting him down. And yeah, spoilers of course if you haven't seen this movie, but yes, RoboCop's hunting him down, and he ends up they end up like really messing up RoboCop in RoboCop 2. Like, he tries to get Kane, and Kane ambushes him with all his goons, and they basically rip RoboCop to shreds. And that was horrifying as a kid. I felt so bad for Murphy. Murphy is RoboCop. He's a cyborg, and this takes place in Detroit. So shout out to Marshall Mathers, Eminem. Love me some Eminem, but yeah, this happens in Detroit. So RoboCop, he gets totally destroyed, and then he wants revenge on them after he goes through some glitches and issues because the company, I can't remember the company's name right now that he works for, but they really mess him up while fixing him after Kane basically rips him apart. So after RoboCop comes to his senses, he hunts down Kane, and yeah, he basically kills Kane. He not like on purpose, he probably wanted to, but yeah, Kane's like escaping in this truck, and RoboCop jumps on the window and like smashes the window and makes the truck that Kane is driving crash him. So yeah, when RoboCop is hunting down Kane and makes him crash the truck, RoboCop's fine, but Kane ends up in basically like a coma-like state. And OCP's the company that made RoboCop, and they're looking to make a RoboCop 2, but instead of this time he's using a cop, which has failed many times in very miserable states. OCP, they use Kane, and he's like a murderer, a psycho, and they try to control his they turn him into a robot. They try to control his behaviors with like that drug nuke and stuff. And yeah, so then Kane is in that robot's body, and of course he starts to malfunction or get kind of a mind of his own because his instinct to kill RoboCop kicks in, and it's a battle between these two guys. But before they do that, they send Kane on a few missions, to go after the governor or something. And yeah, it's like that stop freeze animation, but from back in the day when it was brilliant. And this stuff looks fantastic. I know a lot of it's all miniatures and all that when Kane is interacting and attacking everyone, but it looks fantastic. Like, I don't know, Kane, I love this movie. Like, yeah, Kane's attack scene, like when he goes in on these people, it's just like they're inside of like industrial like area, and Kane just like lifts open the door to this like garage. It's like they're in a garage type area, and Kane just lifts it up with his arm, and he's just like almost like a gorilla robot thing. Like, he looks menacing. He has a huge machine gun on his arm. Like, yeah, it's just a great scene. I love the shots of Kane. Like, I can't tell you how much I love it. Like, Kane is so cool. He's like a minigun on his arm. He has like, flashlights on him. You can't really see his face. It's like a closed off mask. He'll bring out his face and like on a screen, but he is just like, he works people. He shreds people. Like, he just goes in and like whoever he's after, he just starts blowing them away, shredding people to pieces with his minigun. Like, I remember seeing this as a kid and flipping out, loving it. Like, I thought this was the ultimate versus just battle Kane and RoboCop, and even just seeing Kane thrash people to pieces, and like how gory this stuff was as a kid, it was just like so amazing to watch. Like one of the best things ever. But yeah, and there's like a kid in this movie, and it's like an R-rated movie, and the kid, like, he's like a little tough guy, and it's just funny, man. Like seeing that as a kid, this kid act like he's a 35-year-old crime boss, is just so funny. So out there, you're like, whoa, this kid's really grown up. But yeah, it's just a movie. But yeah, I can't tell you enough. Kane, like when he fights RoboCop 2 at the end, and they have their battle, RoboCop versus Kane, like, that's such a good part. And also the part like where they're trying out RoboCops, they're like presenting new RoboCops with cops like in the robot bodies, and they're like, you know, they're doing like a little demonstration and bringing them out. They're like, here's the next RoboCop 2, and it's like not working because the cops, like, they can't really, like, they're not taking to the cyborg life, and they're just like killing themselves or killing other people or ripping their heads off or masks and exposing their insane like dead bodies. And yeah, the people are like, well, why did it work with Murphy, who's, you know, RoboCop? And they're like, well, he has like his sense of duty was so strong that, like, you know, being RoboCop and being the crime fighter that he is, and just so dedicated to his job and so noble that, like, you know, he pushes on as RoboCop, and he can be a hero and still, you know, he doesn't hate being a cyborg because he just has that mission. I mean, he does struggle with stuff like issues in this movie about his like past, and he has memories that don't really make sense, but it's just, you know, it adds so much to the character. Like, they just don't do stuff like that. That new RoboCop movie, I mean, some people said they like it. I couldn't even watch it. I just hated it. Like, I heard they're making a new RoboCop that continues from this RoboCop. Maybe no, continues from RoboCop 1. So, but I think they should have continued it from 2. Like, they should have had, if they're bringing out a new RoboCop, it should be from the continuation to 2, not 3. 3, I don't even ever want to talk about. I don't even like RoboCop 3. I hate it as a kid. I hate it now. But yeah, RoboCop 1 and 2, then a new one, sure, I could be down with that. Because Kane, how can you delete the history of Kane? Like, at the end when he's like, I don't know, in that boardroom meeting and they're trying to show him off and RoboCop comes in, and like Kane's like trying to shoot him, but he can't because, you know, he doesn't have access to his weapons right now. He like takes that controller out of that woman's hand, like crushes it in his hands, and like turns it on so he can like use his weapons, and he just starts like firing off like crazy and firing at RoboCop. There's all these people ducking behind like, you know, chairs, and RoboCop standing up on the top of this platform with like, you know, a huge gun to like take out Kane's weapons or whatever. But this stop animation for this part is so good. It's like brilliant. Like, I just wish they made movies like this. I know people like CGI, but maybe mask over some CGI with how they used to do things in movies. And yeah, like, wouldn't you just love that? Like, the quality in this movie, like, you couldn't get this quality if you tried anymore. And some people think this stuff is probably corny, cheesy. How could you even like it? But it's RoboCop, son. Like, man up. It's RoboCop from back in the day. When you were a kid watching this, your parents let you watch this? Like, that's hype. Let me know. Because my family let me watch everything. They let me play with every, like, gun and robot, and, you know. These movies affected me so much. I still love this movie. It's like, I remember like going to the store with my mom and getting it, and she'd show me this stuff. Like, look, honey, you're 5 years old, and here's RoboCop. And people are getting their fucking limbs blown out, their faces blown out. Like, people are getting shot, killed left and right. There's so much satirical humor in this, and like, you know, backhanded compliments, and it's the times. It was the 90s. It is amazing. I still love it today. Like, I just watched these back to back the other night, and, you know, over the last 2 nights or whatever. And yeah, like I said, I waited the whole movie as usual to see the Kane and RoboCop fight at the end, and Kane just walking through the hallways looking like a beast, and RoboCop just doing the loyal thing. When they're in that elevator as well, like when RoboCop's in the elevator and like cuts that cord, so he flies up and like Kane falls down, like Kane's like struggling, but like how he puts all his arms out and limbs out and stops himself from falling just like a boss. Like, I love that scene when he's falling down the elevator. It is so hype. Like, he just holds himself there. I'm thinking that was so cool as a kid. Like, how'd they do it? You kind of saw the miniature-ish like once I got older, but when I was like 5, like, I don't know how they do this. I thought Kane was like a real thing. I thought like cyborgs were real. Kane runs up through the elevator and jumps out, and they're both on that roof. And Kane's trying to hold on and pull himself up, and RoboCop, like, he probably doesn't even care if he dies. Like, he doesn't even know if he'll live at this point, but they're both hanging off the side of a building. RoboCop's like, "You're coming with me," or whatever. He wants to pull Kane down. Yeah, I think he does say, "You're coming with me, Kane," and he's like, grabs him by the feet and like pushes off of the building. It's just hype, like, I love it. I love it as a kid. They go falling down, crashing, through they hit the road. Thank God, like, nobody was killed, else was killed, and they like smashed through a roof, through the road into like the underground. Yeah, it's just such a good old time. Like the miniatures, and when they fight down there, that's pretty cool too. When they're fighting, like, in the basement, you think Kane's dead, but Kane picks up RoboCop's, like, just smashing him on these beams in the basement and stuff. Like at the end too, like, Kane they're back up on the street, and RoboCop or someone. Lois shows him the nuke, the drug, and like he becomes all docile from it. They're gonna give him what he wants, give him the drugs, calm him down. This is how you control a drug addict, by giving them what they want. But yeah, he gets all docile. "Oh, please, 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 give it to me. And then, he grabs it and he's about to like take it in, and Mr. Good Old RoboCop is of course behind him, ready to. He jumps right on. Kane's like getting high. Kane's like sitting there like taking the drug in. He's like wobbling. He's like actually stoned. The cyborg is stoned, like off of like some sort of heroin like drug. And RoboCop just jumps on his back, son. It's so classic. He's like hanging on. He's like just in the right position where like Kane can't grab him like on his back. So he's like, he's out of control. He can't grab him. Of course, RoboCop's like shooting into him and like rips out the brain of the cyborg and smashes his brain all over the streets. And it's like gooey and slimy, and it looked like a real brain and stuff. But I know I'm just going off on like what the movie is, but it was so cool as a kid. Like I thought movies would get better and better like this as time went on, but more like miniature stuff and more. It looks so real when it's miniatures. That's the part. Like, it's a real thing, right? So compared to like CGI, like, it doesn't have weight. Like, this looks like has weight and it's actually in the room. Some CGI is pretty good. I'm not gonna kid you wrong, but this movie, RoboCop 2, a classic. I could go off forever. I didn't even talk about the first one, but I did watch that too. But I love number 2. I love RoboCop 2. You can't get any better than that. Well, you can, but I mean, it's just for what it is, type of movie, the 90s, VHS in memory special. Hope you like it. And yeah, RoboCop 2, if you haven't seen it, go watch it.